Mumbai. We know very well that each and every human being in the world today has a respect and a reverence for the graveyard. If you were to take me to any religion in the world today, irrespective of whether they bury their bodies in the graveyards or they don't, there's always a respect and reverence for those who have died before us. We all seek to protect our graveyards in order that we're able to maintain the legacy of the important members of our communities. Those people who are now 6 feet under the ground were very influential in our lives when they were 6 feet above the ground. If you go to Buenos Aires in Argentina, or if you go to London, or if you go to New York, or if you go to any part of the world, irrespective of our religion, every human being has a reverence for the graveyard. No one wants to disrespect the graveyard. Even now in India, if, for example, the Hindu community may not necessarily have their own tombstones and graves, but they still have a respect in recognizing the honor of those who have died. Therefore, you find that when you look at the graveyard within the Quran and within the teachings of the Holy Prophet, you find that the graveyard has a particular spiritual and social importance of the life of the human being. When you look at the Quran, you find from the outset that one of the earliest surahs to be revealed was about the graveyards. How many of you have read the ayahs in the Quran? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhaakum al-Takathur, Hatta zurtumul maqabir. This verse was revealed to try and remind us that we shouldn't go to the graveyards for the wrong reasons. When you open a qabristan, what should be the aim of you visiting the graveyard? The early Arabs, what did they used to do? They used to go to the graveyards, instead of going there to get closeness to God, to remind themselves of the hereafter, you found that they would go there to compete with each other, who has more people buried in which grave. There were two Arab tribes, the Banu Abd Manaf and the Banu Salim. They used to go and visit the graveyard in Mecca. Mecca had a huge graveyard. They used to go and visit the graveyard, and when they'd enter, one of them would go, you see those 3 graves? They belong to us. The other one would go, we don't care, we have 6 graves there. Then the other one would go, well, I have 9 graves in the corner, all of them are my family. Then the other one would say, no, we have 21 graves over there. The Quran, according to some of the ulama, the Quran revealed Surah Al-Takathur by saying, what's wrong with you? Your numbers have deceived you when you go to visit the graveyards. When now we open this graveyard, we have to be careful that we don't abuse this graveyard. Don't come to the graveyard to say, I have this many plots in the graveyard, I bought this many, I have more than everyone, my family is the biggest in Mumbai. No. When the Holy Prophet was asked, why should we go to the graveyard? He said for 2 reasons. The first reason is that the heart of the human being is softened when you go to the graveyard. Isn't that true? How many of us have major battles within our own families? Some of us don't speak to our sisters, some don't speak to our brothers, some don't even speak to our fellow community members. When you go to the graveyard, your heart softens. Why? Because when you look at the tombstone, you think to yourself, this person was with me yesterday. Now they have gone back to Allah. Why am I keeping grudges with my family or my community, when in a few minutes I could also go in that grave as well? Isn't it a shame that many of us keep grudges until the day death hits us? When you go to the qabristan, the first benefit of this in Mumbai, the first benefit is the heart of the human softens when you come to a graveyard. However big you think you are, when you come to a graveyard, suddenly there's a peace that envelopes you. The qalb, the heart of the human, is at rest. You look at the people who have passed away, and then you begin to think to yourself, why do I have such a hard heart when I'm going to pass away one day? The second reason you go to the graveyard is what? Is to remind you, however rich you are, or however poor you are, we're all going to end up 6 feet under the ground. There are many who walk around, I have this, I have this, I have this, I have this. When you go and under that grave, you're going to go where the pauper goes, and you go, you're going to have the same size grave. However much gold you put on the grave, however expensive the tombstone is, when you're under the ground, all of you, whether you are poor or you are rich, powerful or not powerful, all of us will go under the ground. So the graveyard reminds us what? Remove the arrogance inside you. For whether you are the mayor of the city, whether you are the president of the country, you will still end up on the same underground as the person in a shanty town in Mumbai. The only thing you take with you to the grave are your deeds. I remember Bahlul in one story, Bahlul asked Harun Rashid, the Khalifa said to him, Bahlul, what can I give you that will make you happy? He said, give me the keys of the prisons of Baghdad. All of a sudden, Bahlul took the keys. 2 hours later, Harun Rashid had gone out. When he came back, he looked at his soldiers. His soldiers said, oh Khalifa, we have a big problem. He said, what's the problem? He said, all of the prisoners have been released from prison. He said, what do you mean? He said, someone had the keys. They opened the prisons. All the prisoners are released. Harun Rashid said, oh my God, what did Bahlul do? So then he said, where is Bahlul? Get him for me. So they said, Master, he is crying because he knows he's done a big mistake. So he said, where is he? Let me go and see him. So they said to me, he's at the graveyard. When they got to the graveyard, Harun Rashid said, Bahlul, why did you do what you done? Bahlul stayed quiet. Then Harun Rashid said to him, Bahlul, why have you done what you've done? He stayed quiet. Then Bahlul said, how can I be forgiven for what I've done? Harun Rashid said to him, capture all the prisoners and I will forgive you. Bahlul said, very well, let's all stay in this graveyard because eventually all the prisoners will come here one day. Whoever you are, eventually you're going to end up in the graveyard. Therefore, the second reason we should come to a qabristan is to remind us that not let's go too high in this world. All of us will end up 6 feet under the ground. The third and most important reason is what? When you look at the tombstone in the graveyard, look at the age of the people. Ask how many years, not did they live, how many years did they serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Alexander the Great came to a graveyard, he saw the tombstones, and he saw every tombstone 3 years old, 4 years old, 3 years old, 2 years old. So he came to the head of the graveyard and he said to him, why is it that children are all in this graveyard? He said, what do you mean? He said, every tombstone, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 2 years, 1 year. He said, they're not children. He said, then what are they? He said, we do not write how many years they lived. We write how many years they served Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's no point living in this earth 50 years when you served humanity for 1 year. If you served humanity for 10 years, 10 years should be on your tombstone. If you served humanity for 20 years, 20 should be on your tombstone, even if you died at the age of 70. Therefore, when you come to the qabristan, you remind yourself not of how old the people are, how much service did they give back to mankind. Then you reflect on how much service you have given back to mankind. And I tell you, the Holy Prophet would stress on visiting the graveyards. To the extent in Islamic architecture, Islam is the only religion in the world where the graveyard should be in downtown, not in the suburbs. Why? If you look in the Western world today, all the graveyards are in the suburbs, not in downtown. Because no one wants to drive to work and remember death. When you drive to work, you want to remember this. But Rasulullah said, no, the opposite. Qabristan should be in the middle of town. Those of you who have visited Mecca or Medina will see the qabristans in the middle of town. So that when you go to work, you have to remind yourself, every penny I earn, there will be a day I'll be questioned about whether it was halal or haram. Every penny I earn, there's a day my Lord will ask me. Let me not go to my business and act all businessman in business, but when I come to my religious place, I act as a man of God. And that's why you find the biggest honor today in Mumbai, and I say this to your excellencies, everyone sitting here, I am honored that in a majority Hindu country, I as a Muslim am granted a piece of land by a majority Hindu country. I have more respect for the Hindus of India than I have for the Saudi royal family and their government.